can use a huge temporary brace to secure it in place. Another team bolts it to the existing roadway. And for a short time, it becomes the new end of the unfinished highway. Once the crane backs away from the bridge, one cable is attached to each side of the new deck segment. The other end of the cable is anchored to the bracket in the pylon head. Each cable is made of up to 70 strands wrapped in black polyethylene. Each strand is made with exactly 7 steel wires, each about the thickness of a chopstick. When the cables are installed, the excess is cut off, and the bare ends get a special coating to prevent rust. It takes 368 cables in all to hold up the 1.4-mile-long roadway. That's 25 miles of cable, made from 10 million pounds of steel. Summer 2003. There is only a year until the Olympic torch must cross the bridge. But after relatively smooth sailing, builders meet one of their biggest nightmares. A major earthquake strikes the unfinished bridge. August 14, 2003. Construction on the enormous Rio and Antirrio bridge faces disaster. Seismic shaking reaches a destructive 6.2 on the Richter scale. Towers are still under construction. They are extremely vulnerable. Worse still, the shock hits as builders are installing a new section of roadway. Workers are everywhere. Miraculously, no one is seriously injured. When the dust settles, all the parts of the bridge are still standing. They dodge the bullet and avoid a major catastrophe. All the expensive scaffolding and crossbeams were insurance that more than paid for itself. The unfinished pylons held together. But this was just a warm-up. Engineers know many more earthquakes are coming, so they designed this bridge with a unique safety feature.
When you see the bridge from a distance, you really expect that it's going to be sitting on the pylons. And as you can see here, there is no vertical contact between the yellow deck and the concrete. This is the unique thing about this bridge, is that we're suspended to the cable stays, we're suspended to the top.
The entire roadway is like one giant swing. In an earthquake, it will be able to move freely, isolated from the most violent shaking. But the very design that protects the bridge in earthquakes makes it vulnerable to high winds. The challenge is how to build a roadway that will not rock in the wind, but will rock during violent earthquakes. To hold the deck in place in bad weather, designers create an innovative system of giant struts. In heavy winds, this main strut holds firm. It does not allow the roadway to move.
But when we have something a little bit more extreme, like an earthquake or something which is a load over a certain limit, this is going to run out of action. It's going to break effectively. Inside, a small part is going to break, and the 4 dampers around it are going to take the movement.
The dampers act like shock absorbers on an automobile, only these are enormous. They allow the roadway freedom to move, so it is not damaged in a quake, yet keep it from swinging too violently or impacting the towers.
And the deck is going to move to side. It's going to absorb this energy of the earthquake, and we're not going to have a catastrophic event on the road or on the pylon. Yeah? So we're going to absorb the energy of the earthquake. It's important for the bridge to be able to move, so we need to let the deck move and absorb this movement with the dampers.
The dampers will allow the roadway to move more than 16 feet. It would be a rough ride, but the roadway would survive. Another difficult design challenge was predicting the behavior of the cables. All cables vibrate, but too much vibration will damage the bridge. So engineers here incorporated two technologies to help solve potential future problems. An untrained eye could easily overlook them, but they are hiding in plain sight. Built into each cable is a collar. If the cables on the Rio and Antirrio bridge vibrate excessively, engineers can attach an additional cable that links each collar with the next. It would be like muting a harp by putting a hand on the strings. On the same cables is another device called a strake. It is smaller and even harder to notice than the collars. The strake is the spiral lip that runs the length of the white cable sheathing. It looks like it is just decoration, but it plays a key role in the longevity and safety of the bridge. It is a lesson a bridge in Texas learned the hard way. The Fred Hartman Bridge in Baytown, Texas, is not as big as the Rio and Antirrio Bridge in central Greece. The main span is 1,250 feet, not 7,000. And it spans a river, not the Gulf of Corinth. There is no active seismic fault line here, no excessively deep water. So it was a surprise when the Fred Hartman's cables began to misbehave. And not just a little. The cables were vibrating so much, they were tearing the bridge apart. It was a confusing mystery. The vibrations would come and go, and no one was sure why. In good weather, no problems. In high winds, pouring rain, no problems. But in a mild rain and a mild wind coming from just the right direction, disaster. It took endless observation and wind tunnel tests to figure out why. It turns out that in a mild rain, a tiny stream of rain runs down the cables. The water changes the profile of the cable just enough so the wind sets the cable in motion. Too much wind, the water gets blown off the cable. Too much rain, and the stream of water doesn't form. On the Rio and Antirrio Bridge, designers do not need to fear mild wind and rain. Here, rainwater cannot run straight down the cables because of the simple raised lip that spirals around each cable. Spring 2004. The new deadline of early August is fast approaching. If the Olympic flame is going to cross the bridge, all the deck segments must be in place. In May, with time to spare, the tack lift transports the last section of roadway from the staging area to the bridge line. The contractor's efforts pay off. Greek authorities see the Olympic flame cross their spectacular new bridge. A week later, the bridge opens to traffic. 4 months ahead of the original deadline. For the contractor, it means a bonus for opening early. But work on any bridge is never really finished. The builders just switch gears from construction to maintenance. To access the sides and underbelly of the bridge, inspectors use a motorized scaffolding called a gantry. Even with it, checking for rust is a high wire act.
We have to inspect all the bridge every year. All the yellow paint has to be inspected from one end to another. It takes about 3 weeks just to inspect all the yellow, each bolt and each yellow coated area. So here we'd have at least 400 bolts, maybe more as we go closer into the middle of the span. These were all placed and tightened in one day, or at least in a shift of 8 hours. These need to be checked carefully at the gaps and around them to see if the paintwork is maybe showing some signs of weakness. It's not easy to inspect all the structure while it's being constructed. There's bound to be a few little points which have been left behind, despite the thousands and thousands of inspections which have taken place during the construction. After a full day checking yellow, you don't want to see it again, I'll tell you.
Maintenance on this superstructure is never routine. Teams need special training, and they need physical strength to access the far reaches of the bridge. From the top of the towers, the view is spectacular. You can see for miles. The sun is shining and the air is calm. Here, working in good weather is not a luxury. It is a safety requirement. Where they will be working, even a small mistake can be deadly. These daredevils are called alpinists. As in mountain climbers, the bridge construction company has flown them to Greece from France because they are specialists in bridge maintenance. These alpinists can get to places that barely qualify as places. They anchor their safety line by drilling a single hole, where they pound a single bolt to attach a loop to hold their rope.
– 10 years of this job, and I'm still scared up here.
When the alpinists reach the cables, they hang from rollers. If they spot any place that might allow moisture to penetrate the covering around the cable, they dap it with caulk. It's like caulking in a bathroom, only here there is no floor. Generally, the alpinists start at the top and head down. Down is a lot easier than up. They will repeat these trips for months until they have checked all 368 cables. The men can be up here half a day at a time, so each brings a water bottle. If they drink the whole bottle, there is a good chance it will be full again before they come down. Alpinists are just one of the specially trained teams that maintain the bridge. Highly trained scuba divers work on the piers. The strong current makes it a challenge just getting to the pier. The captain races the engine to keep the boat firmly against the pier until the boat can be tied off. The water is so cold, divers wear watertight dry suits to stay warm. They use liquid dish soap to get a comfortable fit. All this just to drill holes for mounting brackets. They will will be down for hours.